It turns out there are two different ways to drop the racket on the serve. And the first way is the classic racket drop, what I call the on-edge racket drop. So basically, the racket will drop once we get into the trophy position. It will drop on edge, meaning the edge of the racket is going to drop into this slot. And then it's going to come out on edge on the other end. So it basically looks like a loop. The racket will drop in on edge and then come back out on edge. You can see it is a looping action. This is the on-edge racket drop. Another way to drop the racket on the serve is the open-faced racket drop. And this type of racket drop is used by some of the greatest servers in the history of the game. Players such as Becker, Pete Sampras, Roger Federer, and Andy Roddick use the open-faced racket drop. And it looks something like this. So the racket will come up to the trophy face, and now instead of going back on edge like this, the racket will simply drop with an open racket face. And now this doesn't influence how low the racket is going to drop. It's still going to drop the same amount as it would on an on-edge racket drop. Simply the elbow is going to come up and the racket is going to drop to the same position that it would on a on-edge racket drop. The difference between the on-edge racket drop and the open-face racket drop is that the on-edge racket drop will always have a loop. So the players that have the on-edge racket drop will always come into a loop like this. So the racket will go back inside and then come back out on this side. So it's a little looping action here. While the open-faced racket drop will not have a loop. The racket will simply fall straight back into this slot and then come back out on this side. However, you will see variations in how the racket is dropping on the players that do employ an open-face racket drop. So on flat serves, the racket will drop straight back like this and then the elbow will come up. On kick serves, however, the racket will still drop with an open face, but there will be a little bit of a loop because the body is going to be more sideways. The toss is more likely going to be straight above or slightly to the left for right-handed players. So there will still be a little bit of a loop. However, the loop will take place with an open racket face, something like this. So open racket face with a little loop on kick serves, and then on flat serves, no loop and a straight down open face racket drop. There's also the hybrid racket drop. So players that have an open-faced racket drop on flat serves and then an on-edge racket drop on kick serves. So what is the best way to drop the racket? Well, it really doesn't matter which way you do it. And the funny thing is that on my serve, I was not aware that I do the open face racket drop on my flat serve, and I also was not aware that I'm doing the on-edge racket drop on my kick serve the same way that round edge does it. And this proves that I went through playing tennis at the highest level for 20 years without knowing how exactly my racket drop is occurring. I have a strong suspicion that the other players presented in this video are not quite aware how the racket is dropping. So you can see it in slow motion and it's a little bit deceiving, but we have to put the racket drop in the proper context. So what's going to happen when the racket is about to drop, it has to be done in conjunction with the non-dominant side of the body. It has to be done in conjunction of how we are accelerating the serve. So what's going to happen on the racket drop is that we are going to be on our toes with the knees slightly bent, with our chest up towards the ball. Our non-dominant side is going to be vertical to the ground. And now, when the racket is dropping, in conjunction with that, we are going to start dropping the non-dominant side. So the shoulders are going to reverse positions. And at the same time, the body is going to start straightening out, and we're going to get enormous vertical momentum. So this is what makes the racket drop in a powerful way. If we employ all these power characteristics of the serve, the racket will drop on its own and the elbow will come up towards the ball like this. It's very important that the racket drop is not an isolated movement of the wrist or the arm, because then the acceleration is going to be a lot less. And also, there's the main reason why some of the very common mistakes occur at the recreational level, such as the waiter serve or the opening of the racket face that occurs too early. Those are isolated movements of the arm, and they're occurring at a much slower speed. And the only way to fix them is to work on the fundamental aspects of the serve, develop all the multitude of power sources on the serve. And then if we accelerate the serve properly, this racket drop will occur intuitively. I'm going to hit a serve now as fast as I can, and we're going to take a look at a couple of different things. Number one, I'm going to try to feel how I'm dropping the racket at the conscious level. And also I want you to look with the naked eye, no slow-mo, and try to see whether I'm dropping it with an open face or an edge. And I have a strong suspicion that you will not be able to see it because the acceleration is going to be too fast. So let me hit this one as fast as I can, and we'll take a look. And as far as me consciously feeling the racket drop, it is simply impossible. See, the serve accelerates so fast once the racket drop is initiated, because it's occurring in conjunction with so many other power sources, that it's impossible for us players to feel how exactly the racket is dropping. So what this means for you as a recreational player, it means that you must accelerate the serve properly, and you must learn all the fundamental elements of the serve. And then once you execute those fundamental elements correctly and you are able to accelerate the serve properly, you will be just like any other high-level player, and you will be unaware how exactly the racket is dropping. And this is the only way to have a proper serve, because we need the acceleration. And if we are able to feel the racket drop, what that means is that you're not accelerating the serve fast enough.